Hello and welcome to the Victoria Penfold podcast. I am happy to have you here with me again. So today we are going to talk about the third element of my method, which is going for gold. And this is the life coaching aspect of my method. So if you would be able to start, if you wouldn't mind, just by scrolling down if you're watching on YouTube and just subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you. So today we're just going to talk about what the third element entails, and we'll just do a little recap of the previous elements. So the first element is therapy, so what I call the Shadowlands. So basically going through identifying blueprints and patterns, doing a lot of inner child healing work, working out attachment styles, roles that you've played in your family, within society, and how you've been shaped by your past and even your present self now. And basically within that, we're just expanding your consciousness and your awareness. Then alongside that, which was the second element, was the nutrition and exercise. So that is going to be and is all about nourishing the body, giving it the fuel and energy that it needs, and really tapping into what your true body type is and how to nourish and fuel yourself efficiently to be able to do deeper depth work, and make the mind and body stronger together and simultaneously make you more resilient. And then with the exercise, later stages of that is going to be working out what the unconscious of the body is. So what story is your body holding, and what trauma is it holding, and how do we release that trauma for greater space to be made for the soul to be able to appear and have access to the space that is being currently occupied by possibly past traumas, internalized voices, introjected voices that you might have had from all different kinds of environments. So from home to school, from work, and even later education. So this part of the method is called going for gold. And this is, I guess, the part of the soul's compass part of the method. So what actually happens is when the mind and body work together, so when we use those first two elements, is there's like a spark that happens, and imagine like mitochondria, and then it's like life. And what happens is you're able to then access the soul and the calling a lot more easily. So when the mind and body are working together, it almost like creates like a channel, and the body is much more clearer, the mind's clearer. So obviously doing like the therapy work and clearing everything out during that process, and then cleaning the body and having a nice healthy relationship with food as well, and giving it what it needs, then wisdom from the mind and body is able to be settled and accessed more easily, but more in line with the soul. So then the soul will be able to be heard. And then what happens is a space is created. And this is where I then I'm basically making the field of awareness even bigger. So then you're aware of everything that's happening, you're aware it's happening with your body, but then we can now really focus on what the soul needs, because we've always got to remember the body is the vehicle for the soul. So that is the ultimate what we're trying to access. So this part of the method I quite like, because it's really soulful, and we're able to access the calling of the soul and the true self and what the true essence of our being is and what we were here to be and do. But also simultaneously, it's very practical. And I know like people talk about the law of attraction, and the law of attraction is great. And I've aspired, it's been a big inspiration to me for my work. But also a big part of what can be forgotten is the action that needs to be taken to achieve what it is that you want to do. And going a little bit further with that is then, okay, but what action do I take, and how do I take it, and what steps do I take? So I kind of break down the steps that need to be taken and break them down into manageable steps for you to go along. So I would then, the goal is to align the personality with the soul rather than the other way round. And then what I do is I then start to use and activate your imagination. And that can be as simple as, how do you want your life? How do you imagine your life? And I use different tools and techniques to do that. So it can be visualizations, it can be meditations, it could be drawing. So there's different aspects of it as you go along within that element of the method. And then what happens is once the soul has a real space and it becomes clearer and clearer what your work is and what you want your life's work to be, we then build you a compass, and that is your internal compass. Now that compass is already within you. We're just giving it space to speak, and then we're going to externalize it. So then we're going to build that compass and that roadmap is going to be in line with your soul's calling. And that is going to create the new pathway for your new life. And then what happens then after that is, once there's real clarity around that and we've done all the planning, we know exactly what it is that you want, then what happens is we build that, well, once we've built that compass, I then take practical habits for you to achieve that goal. So I use like a diary system. So we look at how your life is right now and how you want your life to be and where you're going to go with that soul's calling. And then we're going to basically break it down step by step. So it'll be, and I use the week to view diary system. It's actually very simple. We get like a year's worth of diary, and then we break it down into seasonal chunks, and then weekly, and then daily habits, and then all of the little things that you need to do along the way to look after yourself physically and psychologically as well. And also making sure that all your daily habits are in line with what the goal is that you want to achieve. So always in line with what the path of the soul wants. So for example, I decided, for me and my personal story, that this is what I wanted to do. I went through my therapy and I did my nutrition and exercise, and I waited and waited for my soul to speak, and it was in there. And I would often hear it very quietly, and the quietness got louder and louder, the more space I made for it to be able to speak. And then I had to make my own sort of compass. And part of the compass is actually what I've now built now. And when I built that compass, I was looking for all these different things. But then what happened is I was like, okay, so I knew I wanted to do therapy. I knew I wanted to do nutrition. I knew I wanted to be a personal trainer. I knew I wanted to be a life coach. I knew I wanted to give financial support. But all of these things ultimately were for myself first. And then I was like, well, how am I going to do all these things? So there was nothing. So then I had to create my map. And my map was like, okay, so I need to go and do a therapy degree. I need to go and do a nutritional degree. I need to go and become a personal trainer. I need to become a life coach. So I built my map in line with what my soul's calling was. And I remember looking at it thinking, it's 10 years. It's too long. But then I reminded myself those 10 years are going to pass, whatever. So I either stay where I am now, or I do this little path of 10 years while simultaneously still living that other life that I was having. I just chose that in that life, in my spare time, I would sit and watch TV, or go out drinking or partying, or just sitting around doing nothing, quite frankly. But then I just use that time instead to do all my studies. And now I'm in this place where, okay, so all those studies are complete and I've now made this method, and now that's my job. So it's quite incredible that actually, if I hadn't have taken those steps, 10 years would have passed and I probably would have still been where I was. So my goal is with this element to be very soulful, very nurturing, and my dream is that, and my wish is that the souls on this earth will all be accessed, and it's easier to access the soul when we do the first two elements. And then I then use my very practical, very organisational skills, and then we break down your compass step by step. We break down your compass step by step so that you can achieve your goal. So realistically and little by little. And this method is ultimately about slow and steady wins the race, and it's not a get rich quick method in any way, shape, or form, whether that is getting rich with your health, getting rich with your money, getting rich with your education, or getting rich with just being a more grounded person. It takes time, it takes daily habits, it takes consistency. And that is one of the things that each of the elements have got in common. So that is all that the information for this element so far. And then on the next episode, we're then just going to talk about the final element, which is the be the change, which is the money. And I will speak more about that when I see you next time. And again, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And I do hope that you will return again when I speak about the next podcast. Okay, have a lovely day, and I will see you next time.